Hello and welcome to Unity Healing, and welcome to this video blog. This video blog is for the people who prefer to listen to an article instead of reading it. So I'm going to read from the article that has just been published on unityhealing.org. I'm going to try to make it in a little bit more oral communication form. So again, if you prefer to read a text, you can read it on the website. And if you prefer to listen, now be so welcome to listen. So first I'm going to say that the purpose of Unity Healing is, a part of the work in Unity Healing is to draw into language and into our cognitive abilities, ways of thinking and exchanging that attune themselves to our new realities. Because indeed we are living in new realities, and this happens at the very physical level, the level of physical densities as well, and the level of chemistry. So there are really changes, but they are very subtle. And so we need to put in some extra awareness and to create a language that can help us understand these changes, you can say. So a very basic concept concerning our new realities are organic timelines and organic humans. And it relates to a state of physicality, like I just said, that concerns physical densities of planet Earth, but also the very biophysical foundation of human beings. So it's at the energetic level, it is multidimensional, of course, but it's also touching upon our physicality. Now, we know these terms from agriculture, where we know the term organic means that poisonous pesticides, fertilizers, and other artificial chemicals are not being used as much anyway as in conventional agriculture. And we know the term from chemistry, where organic means carbon-based, which has at some time been seen as the most basic element of something living on planet Earth. So of course in Unity Healing we extend the understanding of the particular terms that are viewed as central terms, such as organic timeline and organic human. So it is more than what we know from agriculture, and it's also more than what we can when we connect it to the movements of sustainability, climate change, and the green transition, and the wish to live in ecological communities, you can say. This all actually in some way connects to the way that we use the term organic, but organic then would be more than that, and it would also, as I've already said, it would relate to ways of being human, from the physical level to the psychological, the spiritual, the energetic levels of being human. So before I move any further, I have to sort out a question that could be placed concerning different ways or certain ways of being human. So now what I'm pointing towards, while I make more explicit what an organic human is by no means a condemnation or a judgmental approach concerning ways of being human. It should rather be seen as an opening towards a choice that can be made today when we, or where we as humans, live in accordance with our humane nature at the level of self, the level of community, and within the ecological niches and habitats of which we are part. So Unity Healing is working towards making the openings visible or more visible, and supporting our ability to discern between what we call the artificial timeline and the organic timeline. And of course, we wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't crucial to gain awareness of this difference. So we're inviting a focus upon ways in which we can integrate more ethics and evolutionary love into our organized ways of human existence and our non-organized, more chaotic levels of human existence. And this thing about evolutionary love, we view it as a cosmic force, as a force that relates to planets, to the cosmos, but also to planet Earth and the many different levels of planet Earth. And it relates also to the evolution of species and of the human being as well. So the idea is that we can integrate more of this evolutionary love into ourselves, but also into our organized ways of being collective, a collective humanity, you can say. And when we talk about collective humanity, this is a topic in itself that has to do with our whole species, but also different collectives, of course, that we split up into. Now, in order to understand why it's necessary to become aware of the nature of the current window of opportunity, we need to also understand how societies today, those that we're living in, all of us, even if we live in different countries, are infected with multiple intelligent but very subtle mechanisms that act counterproductive to the thrive of the organic human being. That is, not the human being, but the organic human being. So multiple conscious humans who have connected more deeply with their essence and who want to live in accordance with principles other than those of mainstream societies, they're not currently a goal of interest to those in financial power. And as we know, power today is directly connected to finances. So those who have the most finances, they have the most power. And we must also observe, and many people have already observed, that those people of real financial power, they're not very visible in society. And this is why we have to feel into and understand these very subtle levels, because they influence our life situation at all levels, also the cognitive, the programming, the physical. It influences our potentials for moving, opening up and becoming the organic human. So social structures of today mainly built on accumulation of money. So that means that the agents of these social systems, which are us also, we need to accumulate money. It's sort of like it is an algorithm within these systems that people need to strive to accumulate money, and then they place them into banks, and they support the big conglomerates that are earning a lot of money. I'm just trying to say something very complex in a quite fast and simple way. But the point is that these money are coming out of the system and into the, let's say, the hidden elites, into their administration. And so that some of the money are circulating within the social matrix, and some of the money are constantly being sucked out of the matrix. So there is, and at another level, we can look at the money in a more symbolic way, so that we can say that the energy, or some energy, is constantly sucked out of this matrix. And there is a group of people globally who are thriving on this energy and this money pool, you can say. So this means that there is this group of elites that are able to uphold their independence, so that they don't need to have jobs and earn money like people in the social matrix, but they do have full power to pull threads and to manipulate social institutions, social actions, social living, social agents, in accordance with their own will and intentions. And so this hidden elite is living based on their own rules, and they're not really part of what we understand as the social matrix and the mechanisms that rule this matrix. And most people living in the social matrix are completely immersed into this matrix, and some people don't even have awareness that there could be something other than this matrix, you know. So ascension of consciousness has had a lot to do with opening up consciousness to become aware of the existence of this matrix. And right now I'm focusing only on the social level of the matrix, the social society systems, the structures of the societies. And that doesn't mean that every little part of these societies, every piece of knowledge, every all money, all values, all human beings are completely equal to that matrix. I mean, are only agents of the matrix and have no consciousness, etc. It is not as simple as that. But there is this matrix that we are enrolled in somehow. And it serves as a means for the elites to uphold themselves and their private affairs. We just remember so many cases coming up in this time, like the one of Jeffrey Epstein, who completely has his own way of living. And there are many others, of course. So tools that they use in the matrix are, of course, the whole banking system and also the central banks and national banks, and of course the big global conglomerates and political systems, particular politicians. If we just loosely mention some of the main agencies that they can work through. So many times these involved agents, or some involved agents, act as useful idiots, so to speak, and with all due respect, because they don't have a full overview concerning whose interests they're actually serving and how they're serving these interests. And this is because the overall system, or the hidden subtle system, is very complex, and because it is a question of many levels, you can say, and many levels of agents that again affect each other, affect the system that they are working in, and then affecting the next level, like the political system, then the media and the communication structures, then there are some ways of let's say dumbing down the population so that they're easier to handle and so that the media can get more power. And again, this is not the same as saying that all journalists and all politicians and all doctors who vaccinate and everything, like all these people are necessarily bad people. So what I'm saying is some of them act as useful idiots to this hidden system, and some of them are very conscious about what they're actually doing in this well-orchestrated, highly intelligent, multi-leveled power structures that even relate also to levels of non-physicality. So that means that there is intelligence and consciousness and will at a level of non-physicality. That means that it has no human representation on Earth. And this is one of the difficult things for many people to understand, that we actually need to heighten our consciousness in order to feel and understand these levels of reality if we want to do something different than being ruled by these systems. So while politicians and key figures in global conglomerates, think tanks, academic systems and other institutions of authority can have a wish to work honestly and for the benefit of all, they might get used and twisted by these forces also without being aware of it. And as I said, some others are actually aware of how the system works, and they may get some personal benefits, and at least for a while, and that's why they choose to work in this direction even if they're conscious of what happens. And this is very complex and very political. And there has been a lot said about this, and there's more coming up as also victims, because there are many victims involved. So victims of mind control, of pedophilia, and other kinds of victims are coming forward in these years, and with lots of detailed information. And we also have these very, very intelligent and high-level researchers within the disclosure communities in United States, and we have in England, we have David Icke. In the United States, we have Laura Eisenhower, and there's a range of other important and very skilled contributors in this disclosure movement. But if we look beyond the disclosure movement, which is completely central in the whole, let's say, the whole global human ascension process of evolution of consciousness, opening up consciousness, becoming aware at more levels, you can say. Beyond that, we also need to form new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of being able to relate on the basis of having connected with one's deeper and more authentic selves, and having the urge to connect with others and with planet Earth in more constructive and creative ways. So we need a window of opportunity, for understanding. We need new languages, we need new ways of self-understanding and being that can support this path towards highly sensitive, empathetic and multidimensional consciousness quite naturally. We all have this potential in us, and we all also need support on our path, no matter where we are. And right now, there is this very important opening and higher energetic support for reconnecting with the parts of ourselves that are the most humane, most ethical and empathetic, and aligned with planet Earth and with our abilities to be creative and to live and work in community. Okay, so we have to ask, what is indeed an organic human being? This is the next headline of the article. And the organic human being is mainly based on love as a universal force that shines through the human structure. So it's part of the viable forces that create and run through living structures, and it's also a ground matter from which our incarnated existence is formed. So it inherits expansive and creative qualities. Into this etheric substance, ethics and empathy are ingrained talents that only need nurture to open up and guide us from within. So this is outside of intellectual categorization. So in this way, love, actually the force of love doesn't show as a shield to reality. It's not mainly based on conservation, so it's no place for being dormant and lazy. It is very deeply connected to truth, you can say, to light, shining light on things, and this is also why recognition and daring to see reality, even if it can be harsh, is also part of the love force, you can say, the evolutionary love. So the organic human has an access to genuine, authentic streams of energy that runs through what he or she can understand as a self, like a sort of constituted level of unity, while being in incarnation. So being authentic, it means to open up to this stream and to express the way in which this stream of truth and love runs through and integrates into one's system. So that means in a way that we are also part of an organic, more etheric and cosmic niche that wants to express itself through us while we're in human incarnation. So being organic means mirroring this live stream in our expression. And this is very important to each and every one of us who are connected and connecting to being an organic human. And if we have no opportunity to express this life stream, this life force of evolutionary love, we get depressed, we get stressed, and we can even get sick. So this means that once we open up and we become more people who open up, we really have a need to connect, to express, and to create together. So this is not just a utopia and a fantasy and a romantic dream. This is a real need if we open up. So the stream of evolutionary love is connected to the cosmos, as I've said already, but also to planet Earth and to the densities connected to planet Earth. And it's actually already been a while since the lower densities of planet Earth have heightened their frequency. So that means that being in one to first or second or third dimension, so to speak, of consciousness and density is not the same as it used to be, because the Earth is developing energetically as well. And it is this energetic reality, the Earth reality and the cosmic reality, that we are relating to in the first place while talking about organic timeline and organic human. So we are connecting also to all the elements, of course, earth, water, fire, and air, and to the planets of the solar system in a new and in a higher balance and in a new balance with the new planets that we have become aware of. And of course, the solar system and its connection to other systems in the cosmos. And we could move into the galactic level, but we won't do that right now. So the organic being feels balance and imbalance at an instance. And this is a very important sign for an organic human to navigate by, because every time we feel imbalance, we want to rebalance the system. And that can also be like if we treated someone badly, if we didn't live up to the inbuilt felt ethics or the evolutionary love within our structure. We want to move it back into balance. So if somebody is, this is also why the new children, the crystal children and the indigos and all of the people who have some of this system within them and have some of these openings are very aware of injustice. So any kind of injustice, it's a strong feeling that comes right into you, and you want to rebalance this experience. And also, like I said, also if you did wrong to others, so it goes both ways. It's a kind of extended empathy and very clear and strong and direct empathy at the level of what I call feeling, based on extended sentience. So it's not just an idea in the head. Now, at this level, we're not working primarily with ideas in the head, as in the way of the old mental body. But anyway, the organic being, the organic human being, has access to truth, because truth is something that really exists. And it's more than intellectual, it's more than rhetorical, it's more than argumentative. It can be represented through social institutional work. For instance, the academic institution that works with truth, or like to believe it works with truth. So it can be, but it's not guaranteed by institutional rules and regulations as we know them today. So it needs to be felt by the individual, which I just tried to explain. So truth represents a genuine access to the surrounding world that integrates manifested and energetic levels in an experience that runs through the fine-tuned elements of the organic body. And it's as such not directed by a person's personal programmings or projections or traumatic blockages. Now, for instance, trauma recorded in the fascia and implemented into our physical structure, it can actually be a hindrance to the stream of truths and evolutionary love, you can say. And this is why our work with our structure throughout one lifetime and several lifetimes. It's a piece of work, of constant work, you can say, towards attaining more pure levels of truth and organic life streams. And we must remember here, no matter where we are on our journey, that guilt and fear, when they come up in us, they are to be processed and worked with. But as long as we focus and do our best, and as long as we reach a level of unity where we feel connected to humanity and planet Earth when it comes to our responsibilities, and that means when we reach some kind of some level of altruism and empathy in everything we feel and do, we're on the right path and we're doing our best, and we shouldn't be feeling guilty or negative about ourselves. And that particularly also concerns with understanding ourselves as being in a constant process. So just because we have trauma or we have blockages, or we do make projections and we still have personal programmings that we need to change our relationship to or get completely rid of. This is natural. Most of us have it. I dare say all of us. And there's no need to have fear or guilt because we haven't gotten rid of all our blockages. But it is an important part of moving into the being, the organic human being, you can say. Now, why talk of an organic timeline? Our language and cognitive arrangement of thought currently has a problem that they separate and fragment what is really united and what many of us feel is united. So they're not properly related to the expanded structure and the experience of the expanded structure, individual, so to speak, and the language that is there to use for them to signify their reality, or for us to signify our reality. And in order to discern organic timeline from artificial timeline, we need to reunite a range of binary oppositions that structure our mindsets, and we need to learn to think in more holistic way. And a language is a big part of this. It is connected to our cognition, and it is related to neurological levels as well. So we use language to communicate. We use language to be specific, to be able to understand each other and to connect with the world around us and with each other. So language is a technology. It's developed through thousands of years, and there is as such nothing wrong with languages. This is a clear stance of unity healing. Even if we feel all the energetic levels and we feel the multidimensional reality, and we feel the many levels of reality that cannot be signified by language, we know that in the first dimensions, like 1 to 4 and maybe even to 5 and beyond, there is still a potential for language, and we need to upgrade language in order to better signify our new realities. So at this particular time, and relating ourselves as grown in consciousness and in physical structure, trying to relate to the reality of the matrix that we are also living in, there is a clear dissonance and a clear disconnection with the way that languages are being used within the matrix. So it's very important, because we're trying to discern organic timeline and organic human from artificial timeline and artificial human. And it's very important that we have to become aware of some of the fragmentations in language and cognition that separates us from ourselves and separates us from each other. And in reality, you can say that there is really no separation. And why is that? And first I have to say that we exist as multidimensional beings in multiple different dimensions. And at some level, some levels we feel a complete unity of consciousness because we feel humanity as one. And at the same time, there are other levels where it is important that we are fragmented because we are here and we have the, let's say, jurisdiction is not the right word, but we have the responsibility for one part of this overall humanity. And that is ourselves and our own structure and our own area of and space and realm of existence. So we are both one and we are also separated. But at some level, we can say that we are our own worlds. We create our partial and our collective worlds. We create our own worlds, multidimensional worlds, and from that point of departure, we also create collective worlds. And this is also where we use the shared language. So we can say that we attune into particular momentums of space-time, and this in part is what generates a timeline also, or what connects us to a timeline. So our need today, when it comes to language, is to a high extent to be able to create new levels of understanding where we can merge some of the levels that we have previously understood in fragmented forms. So this comes with our new understandings of ourselves as multidimensional, for instance, where brain and body are one overall whole, and where our experience is no longer split between intellectual or emotional, psychological or energetic, but it's a complex of oscillating movements that constantly involve all levels, and furthermore connects us to our ecological niche and habitat, and also the cosmic level of our ecological niche and habitat and consciousness relation. So time is something different when we create and exist in a new timeline, and this goes for all levels, and even our feelings of timelessness and being in the now, which is much more prevalent in the new timelines than in the timelines of the old paradigms. So this is something that most of us can relate to, much more focus on being in the now, and much more experience of upheaval of the linear and very strict and basic linear time structure as well. So connected to these timelines are also the way that we make narratives as a culture, and the creation of narratives. And this goes over linear time. Some of them are made here and now, just in a month or so, and some of them go back thousands of years. But we're all in the midst of all these cultural narratives. And we have some main narratives that are connected in a network of narratives, and it forms the collective stories that we understand our culture and society and ourselves by. And these need to change. So we need to create new narratives to understand ourselves by, and from which we can form agency and connect to each other and be interactive. And these new narratives, of course, they have to relate and be attuned much better to the new energetic realities that we live in. So language and words and stories, they mean more than we often like to know. So especially after opening up to our energetic consciousness, we might feel something as telepathy much more clear, and we use our multidimensional sensorium. And so from this point of departure, we might come to think that language no longer matters, but it does on this planet. It is one tool among others where discernment has to happen, so that we create shared languages that relate directly and energetically to the organic timeline, and thus connects us together also as organic humans. And there is one field where we must very truly, there must be a separation, and a clear discernment between organic timeline and artificial timeline. And this is technologies and the way that we understand the correlation between human and technology. So the next part of the article has the headline technologies. And so connected to timelines are the technologies that we invent, and even more so the way that we use these technologies that we invent. This might be even more important. So this is also connected, of course, to the purposes of the elite, but also at another level to the needs of the broad public. So while the elite system seeks to make the populations slaves to their own needs, sounds horrible, but it's actually what's happening. The populations need to become better equipped to move into higher levels of sovereignty, to connect to their authentic selves, and to open up creative spaces from where new worlds can be generated. And this is what is so well illustrated in the global eco-village movement, at least for some inspiration of how this can be done and furthered into our new timeline. So we have timelines that support the use of high-level technologies to place human beings in actually still more servitude to elitist needs, with potentials of 5G and beyond, and the Internet of Things to use humans negatively. And this is where many people go wrong in the well-off countries, where we have middle classes that still live very nice lives, that sort of like have a resistance to realizing that also their level of existence is actually threatened by this way of systematization, because the energy is sucked out of the whole system, not only those who are already struggling. So here under the way of using the new technologies negatively, we have the transhumanist agendas, because they rest upon the idea that humans are not developing at an evolutionary level. They're not opening up consciousness gradually, and there's nothing happening with humans that we don't already know and understand. We are very much in neuroscience. There's so much emphasis on the brainstem, and that we are sort of like many problems are interpreted as if we were still fighting tigers in the wilderness, and there is of course a part of us that relates to that experience, but there are also parts of the frontal lobes and of the even higher levels of intelligence or intellectualism, or what you call it, of the brain's consciousness levels that do not relate to these simple theories or simplifications of how we understand the human being. And of course we don't understand everything about the human brain or the human consciousness and intelligence system, and it is such a shame to develop ideas about human beings having to plug into technologies in order to upgrade. So this approach is, like I said, it's typically based on theories that on humans that by no means have taken into consideration this heightening of human consciousness as a potential, the experience of multiple dimensions, the experience of synesthetic experiences, in heightened sensory, widened sensory awareness, energetic awareness, and things like this. So this is not taken into consideration before we are ready to plug humans into some kinds of technologies. And we also must understand that some of these technologies will be systematized by people in power, in huge financial power. This is what it's like today, and that is very problematic. So it can be no match to an organic timeline to plug into technologies that are systematized by people in financial power, because it would rest upon the genuine potentials and of the individuals involved in it. And these individuals would have an open and developed structure that process higher level awareness, genuine altruism, and strive towards to open to an organic human potential. So what I'm saying here is that a large part of the population would already have evolved into this openness towards the organic human being, and this will be no match to the way that these technologies are organized, because every way that these technologies are organized, they are organizing our everyday life, our everyday actions, and that needs to be a match to who we actually are, and it is not. Already now, the digital systematization is not actually a match to the range and potential of many people, and this means that it's actually holding them down, but we're not broadly, culturally, really aware of this. Like we also know at the scientific level, we know very little about how to understand the universe, the gray matter of the brain or the DNA. I mean, the scientific explanations are complex and everything, with lots of detail, but still only explaining few percentages of what we expect to be there to be. So, of course, there is so much more potential to discover and develop. And those of us who are a little bit further down this road and have actually made conscious to ourselves that we have an extended sentience and multidimensional consciousness, we have felt it throughout our whole lives, how this society, and now it's even becoming worse, the organization and structures of societies are actually repressing our natural cognition, natural feeling, natural sensation, everything. So as more people wake up, it will be a problem to them too. And this is not what we need at the social level. We need support of the creative, organic, living, lifeful, evolutionary, love-based human being. That's what we need the structures of the society to support. So technological development is one place where timelines clearly split, and they will further split in the very near future. And this is also where we can end up making choices that support us as organic beings, or choices that do not support us as organic beings. And this is also where the current power structures are influencing highly on the development towards a non-organic future, where organics, human beings and communities will not thrive. So it's simply generating habitats that are not well suited for human thrive. And technologies are actually what makes the timelines more tangible and visible as well, because the level of manifestation through technologies, digital, computer technologies, etc., and other technologies, they have become heightened and better facilitated. So we can manifest more of our thoughts, you can say, and we can experience interaction with manifestations based on thoughts of humanity. So we understand more when we are confronted with technologies, and we open up if we open up our philosophical abilities and our inbuilt ability to see for ourselves, we can see virtualized and digital organization, and we can understand leveled realities and intangible realities, you can say, better than we did before. So it also distributes and mirrors our own intentions and thoughts as collectives, but unfortunately it's dominated by those in power. So it also becomes more visible when we are creating negative manifestations that do not support our humane and humble approach to planet Earth. So at the same time, however, it will leave us, technologies will leave us with great potential of creating new technologies that can be humanely and earthly, planetary, supportive. So it depends on the quality of will the quality of intention and vision behind manifestations. And this is what we really have to make clear to ourselves and others. It depends on the quality of will, the quality of intention, and the quality of vision behind manifestations. And that needs to not be ego-based and not be based on the need for accumulation of money. And so the way... So technologies in themselves are not good or bad. And our pathway towards integration into an organic timeline doesn't need to be one of no technologies. It's only that the technologies developed and used must support organic humans and their relation to Earth in the best possible way. And today, the domination over technologies of multinational conglomerates is not very promising in that direction. And more than ever, we need to be aware of the subtle ways in which digital technologies have already become repressive powers, tools that dumb down ordinary people. So now the last section of the article has the headline, what are our options and highest hopes? And today many people with an open consciousness, they work with release of trauma and old programmings. And this is one very important way of moving into the organic timeline, as I have already said. Now, what we emphasize as well in Unity Healing are strategies of health optimization that is actually part of releasing ourselves of old trauma and of negative programming, you can say. But it's also related to food, to nutrition, and a way of also discernment when it comes to current social systems of health. There are also already many high-level agents of disclosure and trauma healing that are able to assist when it comes to resolving personal and collective trauma in order to learn to open up towards this positive influx and organic physical levels available to us right now in this window period. So while Unity Healing emphasizes health optimization, the approach is holistic and multidimensional. So it means that we strive towards balance in all structures, in all densities and dimensions. And if this concerns an individual, it will be a focus upon those densities, those dimensions, and those particular topics of this individual that needs balancing. And the individual, the more that you come towards your organic being, state of being, let's say it like that, it will become more and more clear when there is a balance, when there is an imbalance, and where it is and how. And this is what we work with in Unity Healing. And then, because the artificial part of the matrix is so persistent and visible to all, and we feel it because we're forced to relate to it in one way or the other in our everyday lives, we emphasize the ability to discern and to dissect organic from non-organic in relation to an over-digitalized world. So from there we can be creative with ourselves, with our energy system and our forms of relation and creation. it's obvious that there will be a lot of work at this level, physically, psychologically, and energetically, before we can move into being directly creative and forming matter of the earth more directly in accordance with a humbly, genuinely spiritual higher will that runs through us, and so that our creations can become more supportive of organic earth and organic humans. But this is also part of being here and having future potentials and reasons to be on this planet. Now, thank you for listening to this article, and I want to just say, stay tuned for more on the topic of potentials of connecting to an organic timeline and the topic of technologies and much more on unityhealing.org. Bye bye.